What constraints reveal? What we choose to keep says everything about what we value most. Our house in Miami is slowly disappearing into boxes. For years, it has held the evidence of a family becoming itself. Books read and forgotten, photographs waiting to be framed, furniture chosen for rooms we no longer use in the same way, and objects that belonged to past versions of our children and of us. Earlier this year, my wife took a new leadership role with a company in Seattle. Now that our daughter has wrapped up her school year and will be attending college on the West Coast, the summer has given us the opportunity to finally move to Seattle and support my wife's work. Two of our three children are away at college, only one remains at home. The architecture of our family has changed, and we have decided that the architecture of our home should change with it. We are moving into a smaller space. At first, this sounded like a practical decision. Fewer people require fewer rooms. A smaller home asks less of us and perhaps leaves more room for other things: time, movement, attention, experience. But the practical decision soon became a philosophical one. A smaller home cannot hold an unlimited past. It forces a distinction between what we have accumulated and what we still value. The clarity of less. As we have packed, given things away, and decided what will not travel with us, I have realized that we are letting go of nearly half of what we own. What surprises me is how little of it feels like loss. Much of what surrounded us had become almost invisible. It remained not because we had chosen it again, but because we had never been required to choose. Space allowed us to put off the decision. That may be one of the quiet dangers of abundance. When there is room for everything, we do not have to decide what deserves room. When the budget can absorb another purchase, the calendar another commitment, or the organization another initiative, we can say yes without considering what the yes displaces. Eventually, the accumulation begins to obscure the value. A room crowded with meaningful objects can make each one harder to see. A calendar filled with worthwhile obligations can leave little time for what matters most. A company pursuing many promising opportunities may gradually lose sight of the reason it was created. Constraints interrupt that drift. Affordability, distance, time, and space can feel like forces that narrow our lives, yet they also sharpen them. They ask us to rank what we would otherwise treat as equal. A budget reveals what we are truly willing to pay for. A long distance reveals which relationships we will work to sustain. A smaller house reveals what we want close enough to touch every day. The constraint does not necessarily diminish the value. It helps us recognize it. Organizations, like families, rarely become distracted all at once. They drift by degrees. A new project is launched because the opportunity seems compelling. A product expands because a customer asks. A process is added to solve a problem that may no longer exist. A temporary meeting becomes permanent. A strategic exception becomes a habit. On its own, each decision seems sequential and defensible. Each object once had a reason for entering the house. But over time, the organization's identity can become buried beneath the work it has accumulated. Activity begins to substitute for direction. Leaders become caretakers of everything the company has started, rather than stewards of what it most needs to accomplish. Returning to the essential. This is why returning to the core mission is not merely an exercise in efficiency. It is an act of remembrance. What is the essential job the customer trusts us to perform? What progress are we helping someone make? What promise sits beneath the products, departments, channels, and processes? The answers may evolve, but they should not disappear. A company needs moments when it metaphorically prepares to move into a smaller house. Moments when leaders look at everything the organization carries and ask whether each part belongs in its future. A useful reflection might begin here. What would our customers miss most if we disappeared? Which work most clearly fulfills that promise? What are we preserving only because it already exists? If we had fewer resources, what would we refuse to sacrifice? What must we release to give our best work more room? These are not questions that need to be asked only in a crisis. In fact, they are more powerful when asked before necessity makes the decisions for us. Our move to Seattle is not simply a move from one city to another. It is a crossing between chapters. The things we carry will help shape the life we build there, but so will the space created by what we leave behind. Perhaps that is true of every transition, personal or organizational. We imagine that progress is defined by what we add: more capabilities, more choices, more rooms, more paths forward. But sometimes progress begins with subtraction. Sometimes we discover what matters not by acquiring something new, but by choosing, once again, what is worthy of coming with us.